You may have heard that Ontario Sheep Farmers has a new goal. We've only been talking about it a little bit. We want to fulfill 50% of market demand by 2040. So we've been talking about this goal since the summertime, and we want to get your thoughts on achieving the goal. Each one of the districts is going to be hosting a meeting, except for District 6, who had their meeting a couple of weeks ago. So please look on our events page on our website to find out when your district meeting is. We're going to be talking about not only the goal, but some of the math behind achieving it. And then we're going to be asking you about changes that can be made on farm to achieve the goal, how we can attract new producers into our industry, and just generally about the challenges and the opportunities that you see for sheep farming in this province. So we're looking forward to talking to all of you, and I really hope you can make it out to your upcoming district meeting in March or April.
Now let's get into today's episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Erin Morgan.
And I'm Walker Ball, and we work for the members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers.
Today, we're here with Phil Botden to talk about his confinement-based lambing system. Welcome to the podcast, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
So to get us started, can you talk to us a little bit about your farm? Can you tell us why you chose a confinement lambing system?
Yeah. So our farm is, we're first generation sheep farmers. We've been in the sheep business, I guess, for about 15 years. And my wife and I have farmed full time in the sheep business for, I think I'm going on 8 years now since I've worked off farm. So we kind of stumbled into it. I grew up around farming, but just bought some sheep because we had space and feed and stuff like that. And it just kind of grew from there. So we are a confinement operation. We run a good 500 ewes. They're mostly Rito background. We've crossed some Ile-de-France in and also use Ile-de-France as our terminal breeds. So we lamb all indoors. So our sheep are all housed either indoors in barns or barnyards, depending which stage of gestation they're at. So we've got 4 different hoop style buildings or coveralls, whichever everyone calls them something different, that we house them in, as well as an old bank barn that we do our lambing in. We also do our shearing, ultrasounding, vaccinating, everything's done in that old bank barn. It's kind of our thorn in our side. It's the barn that needs updating and upgrading, but it's what's got us this far, and it works in the cold weather, it works in the warm weather. So we're dealing with it for now. We lamb every 6 weeks year round, which is a little different than a lot of people. So because of our old bank barn, we can only lamb groups of around 100 at a time. So our groups will kind of vary from 70 to 120-ish, depending. We're always aiming for around 100. We kind of ended up with confinement probably by fluke as much as anything, because we did both work off farm full time. It just kind of worked with coming home at night. I was a heavy equipment mechanic for 15 years, so long days. So you could come home at night, flick the lights on in the barn, and do your chores rather than wandering through a pasture looking for stuff with a flashlight. So yeah. I did start out with beef cattle. That's what I grew up around more. So I definitely spent time out there looking for them, and just didn't work as well with working off farm. And I've always just enjoyed the barn atmosphere. I like doing chores. I know some people, the pasture thing, they like being out checking sheep. I grew up working on a dairy farm as a kind of a job, and I just enjoy the barn atmosphere.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. Very interesting. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that producers might have about confinement lambing?
So I thought about this a little bit, and I would say maybe some of them. I've heard some people say, oh, it must be easier than being out on pasture, like, because you're there, you can see everything. We don't have the predator issues, maybe the same, and the parasite issues. But I would tell most people that we just have different issues instead. So it's kind of same as anything. It's what you prefer. It's just different challenges. So with the confinement, we're dealing with bigger litter sizes. We have more prolific breeds where you're not going to see that as much out on pasture. That's just not desired. So that's changes the challenges. Like, we are a little more hands-on than a pasture person wants to be, because generally we're getting more lambs per ewe kind of thing. Also, maybe that, like, I've heard people say, oh, it's not very nice for them to live in barns all the time and stuff. And I've told lots of people, I said, come on over anytime. I'll open the gate and let them go. I said, they'll do a lap in the barnyard and they'll go right back in the barn they came out of. Our goal is for them to be as comfortable as we can possibly make it in that barn. So when it's hot in the summertime, they're in the shade. There's generally airflow through those barns, so it actually feels nicer than outside. So our goal is for those sheep to be as comfortable as they can. Same in the wintertime when it's blowing and snowing, they're in out of that weather. So yeah, like I say, some people just say, oh, well, they probably would rather be outside. And I said, well, we can try that anytime you want to see.
Yeah.
And they say our sheep kind of like their barns.
That's a good response.
Yeah. Like I say, it's like anything. We take care of them, they take care of us, so we want them to be comfortable.
Yeah. I like that.
Fantastic. So Phil, tell us about the labor demand during lambing compared to a pasture system.
Yeah. So again, I've never lambed on pasture, so I don't. And anyone that's pasture based, take what I say with a grain of salt. But lambing's lambing. No matter where you're lambing, in or out, it's your busy time. For us, with lambing every 6 weeks, lambing's just the normal here. Like, we have less days that we aren't lambing than we are lambing. So I tell a lot of people we're a lot more similar to like a dairy farm style, where we have morning and evening chores every day. And quite often you're dealing with lambs almost every day. So it's, a lot of people say you're nuts. Why would you want to lamb all the time? But because they are smaller groups than some farms, it's just that steady flow. It also works in all our other barns that there's steady flow of lambs at all stages, from newborn to being shipped out kind of thing. So like I say, the labor is there, but it's our normal, I guess. So as weird as that sounds. And we will have, obviously, we use cedars on our summer bred groups to help increase conception. And therefore we do get some days where it'll be busy, because you'll have those days where a bunch of them bred, and like I say, you might have 20, 30, 40 ewes lambing a day. And with higher prolificity rates, it's nothing to see 2, 3, 4 lambs out of every ewe. So some days are crazy, some days you only have a couple lamb. So it's just what you're used to, I guess. And we have obviously a lot of nursery lambs as well. We only leave 2 lambs generally on a ewe to raise. So we have one milk machine that runs basically year round. It almost never shuts off. Occasionally in the fall it might for a couple of weeks, and then we actually have a second milk machine for at times when we're busy. We'll have 2 nurseries on the go. So like I said, it's similar to a dairy farm idea where there's morning and evening chores, and that's just what we're used to.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is, if this doesn't work out, you do have a backup to be like a birthing doula or something, Phil.
Yeah. I've had that folks said before, where I've had people say, like, you're probably more trained than, like, if the fire department had to come for someone in labor and stuff. And I said, like, I do farm animals. I'm not into that stuff. So
That's so funny. Yeah. Call the nearest producer if you're in a pinch.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how do you manage barn environment factors like ventilation, bedding, stocking density to keep ewes and lambs healthy?
Yeah. So barn environment, like, that's huge for us, obviously. Like, it's a challenge because our barns need to work in the heat and humidity of the summer, as well as the cold and wind chill and all that of the winter. So it's a challenge at times. There's always those times a year that it's like, it could be better. But that's the same. You can compare that to being out on pasture. You're going to deal with rainy weather, cold weather. So our bank barn, we use fans for ventilation to control it in there. So it's in the wintertime, we can, with sheep that have been freshly shorn and around 100 of them in there, it rarely goes below freezing. But that's at the same time, if it's minus 25 outside, it can get a little stuffy in there. We will run fans minimally to move some air, but we're trying to keep that environment nice for newborn lambs to not be dealing with that cold. Our hoop style buildings, they're all ventilated a little differently. Curtains on the side, doors on the end. Some of them are open on the ends for the dry ewes that don't need as much shelter. We do all the hoop buildings are bedded daily. We have a bale processor that we pull behind a tractor. So as the TMR mixer is mixing feed, I run through the barns with the bedding processor and blow bedding in there every day. Some people that roll out bales will do that like twice a week and they're just putting in more. I like to give them a fresh, clean bed every day. I have had lots of people comment saying, "How do you keep your lambs so clean?" And I said, well, it's one of those things that I'm just used to doing it that way, and it's worked for us. We did invest in some machinery when we kind of expanded to go full time because our whole farm was based on being done with one person. We wanted that we weren't tied down to needing help or both needing to be in the barn. So 99% of what's done here I can do by myself. So one of those things was, like I say, a TMR mixer, a bale processor, that things are quick and easy. The old barn, like I said, the bank barn, it is bedded by hand. Like I said, it's where our biggest labor hurdle is, but we kind of accept that a little bit because that's also where we're busiest. That's where the lambs are being born. That's where we need to be. All the hoop buildings are either lactating ewes or dry ewes or breeding ewes, and they just don't need as much of our attention. So we want them fed quickly, bedded quickly, and we check on them a few times a day. Other than that, they're good to go. And the same, obviously, try not to overcrowd things, especially with our lactation ewes with young lambs. There's always that risk of someone getting stepped on or laid on or stuff like that. So we want to try to give them adequate space that they stay clean and dry, and they can all do their own thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like a great system you have.
It does.
Some days.
Yeah. And then how do you manage biosecurity and disease pressure when large numbers of ewes and lambs are housed indoors?
Yeah, so we raise all our own replacement ewes. We have since I think 2016 is when we kind of expanded and took the leap to go full time. So we had about 200 ewes of our own at that time, and we bought in 200 more straight Rito ewes, and we've kind of built from there. So the only thing we bring in is new rams every year for some new genetics, so that minimizes the amount of animals coming in and out of here. We also, obviously, we enforce biosecurity like every other farm does. The signs are up. You come here, you want to visit, you put the booties on, stuff like that. And then obviously any rams that do come in, they go through a quarantine period, same as many other farms. And we just try to, like I say, not have anything more coming through the barns than we need to.
Right. Yeah. I know that you previously said that you don't have like the pasture based to compare. But based on maybe some of your conversations with other producers who are doing pasture based, in terms of like ewe behavior or like mothering ability, do you know if that changes when lambing happens indoor compared to outdoor?
I would say, like, obviously our goals are the same. We want a ewe that can have her lambs on her own or with minimal help and get those lambs up and going. So with our confinement sheep, generally they're going to be a Rito or Romanov or something background that are more prolific. So we understand that, okay, if they're going to have quads or quints or something like that, sure, we might have to help a little bit. We're probably going to offer some colostrum to make sure things get going. But all in all, we want, and we're pretty strict here on picking ewes that can do their job and can do it out of season and all those things. Like if they can't have those lambs, get them up and going, and just don't have that drive for it, then they just don't have a place here. So it's, some people think, well, that's pretty strict and whatever, but you quickly learn in this business that we've got a job to do and so do they. So our job is to take care of them. Their job is to take care of what they have. So
Good point.
yeah, so like I say, it's similar idea to the pasture base, obviously just in a little different, little different targets and goals or whatever. Like I said, those being that they're prolific, that's where the difference lies. We know we're going to be more hands-on. We're going to be taking 1, 2, 3, depending how many lambs they've had, to the nursery. So we've got to be on top of that as well. And we also, a little difference, I would say, between the confinement sheep. We want sheep that don't mind being around us in close quarters, where a lot of pasture people that I've talked to and said, like, they said it's crazy, but almost the crazier those sheep are, like, to be away from you, it almost seems like the better they are, because they're just alert. They're always aware of their surroundings. So if there's a predator or something, like, their ears up, looking around. Where our sheep, we kind of want the calm, cool ones that don't mind you hopping in the jug with them to help a lamb get on or something like that. So same basics that we want, but little different outcomes, I guess.
Yeah, different behaviors. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking about hopping in and helping out, how often are you checking ewes during lambing, and what are the key things you're watching for during those checks?
Okay. So at lambing time, like I said, our bank barn's where it's all happening. So we are in there quite a bit, because you're having lambs born every day. Like the day after they're born, we're tagging them, we're processing them, entering all their data into our scanner and system. So we're in there, like, I would say every couple, 2-3 hours throughout the day. When I got into this, when I bought the Ritos, so a well-known producer I bought them from, I visited some farms, wanted to see how other guys did it, was serious about growing and all that stuff. So it was interesting and almost funny. Like, so this guy was asking me the questions, like, okay, you're gonna grow, you want to get into this? Yep. So he said, like, do you get up and do your night checks every night and all that stuff? I said, oh yeah, for sure. Like at least a couple times throughout the night, maybe 3 if we're busy. And this was when we didn't have near as many sheep, when still was working full time. And he said, okay, so the first thing you're gonna do when you get all these sheep home and stuff, he said, you're gonna quit doing that. And I thought, well, what do you mean? I said, like, I'm gonna have more sheep, I'm gonna have to check more. He says, no. He said, like, if you're tired, you're gonna be grumpy, you're gonna be miserable, and you're in there bothering them every 2 or 3 hours throughout the night. He said, buy sheep that can do a job. He said, so at 10 o'clock or whatever, he said, if all's calm and quiet, leave them alone. He said, let them go to bed, let them get some rest and stuff. So I kind of took that. It took me a while to take that to heart, but we actually do now. Like, I rarely do night checks. Like, I usually around 10 o'clock, I check on everyone. If anyone's in labor or starting, then I will stay till they're lambed out and in a jug and separated. But we have given up most of that. So unless it's a really big group and we know that there's going to be action through the night, I might go down once, but not very often. Because we lamb so often, like, to never ever get a full night's sleep.
That'd be crazy.
He's right. You have to let them do some of their own work, and you gotta do your own thing too. So it's one of those things that you learn from the elders, and he's a wise man. He's well known. So yeah, like I said, 10 o'clock or so, we try to leave them alone. We're back down there like 4 or 5 in the morning, depending on how busy. If it's at the end and you're down to less ewes and they got more pen space, maybe they get an extra hour or something like that. But throughout the day, like I say, we'll be around a lot. And then also, like, we're obviously checking lambs a lot in the first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, to make sure no one looks skinny, no one's falling behind. Like on those days when you have 40, 50 lambs born or whatever, like, you gotta, it's hard to not miss one or whatever when you're walking up and down pens, or even in the nursery, new ones that you've brought in there that day have to figure out where to get the milk and all that stuff. So like I say, when we're lambing, we're around quite a bit, but it's because we're doing other things too.
Right. Well, what would you say during that time, like, or in the first 48 hours, would be the most common cause of lamb loss?
So it probably differs a little bit on different operations depending on their layout. But here, like, space is always an issue. So you put a ewe in a lambing jug with quints or quads or something like that. There's always that chance of one of them getting laid on. It sucks, but we do try to keep our lambs with them for the first 24 hours so they can get some of her colostrum, even though we're offering extra. So there is that. Like, obviously bigger pen spaces and stuff like that can help that. We do have some bigger lambing jugs that we'll try to put the bigger litters in, but when you're busy, that they might be full. Even just like you say, when you're busy, lambs that haven't figured out how to suck or where to find it, stuff like that, that next thing you know, you walk by and think that one looks skinny. So stuff like that. It's mainly those busy days when you're kind of putting ewes and newborns in jugs as fast as you can take other ones out and stuff, that all of a sudden 8 hours have gone by and you're like, I haven't got back yet to check on those ones from this morning. So
Right.
stuff like that, it's timely when those first 48 hours are pretty key to make sure you get that colostrum in them, keep them warm if it's cold out. Summertime's the total opposite. They can get overheated on you, dehydrated. I would say those would be probably the biggest ones here, like just those first things that they need and making sure they're getting them.
Yeah. No, that all adds up.
Yeah.
So, Phil, if you were to give advice to somebody getting started with a confinement flock and they want to get off on the right foot, do you have some advice for them?
Yeah. So number one, I think, is pick breeds that are designed to do what you're going to do. You hear so many people saying, oh, I'm going to do a bit of both. And it's like, you kind of have to pick, like, one, buy good sheep. Don't like go to a breeder, go to someone that's doing something that you think is exactly how you want to do it. And like I say, it's the same. I would say the same thing for pasture. If you're going to do pasture, buy pasture sheep. Don't buy confinement sheep. You're going to hate them having quads out there on grass and leaving 2 of them behind. So go to other farms, look at what they're doing. I have rarely ever met another farmer that's not willing to show you what they do, chat about it, tell you their struggles, challenges. I'm the same way. Like, we have lots of young people that come through here because we've kind of started from scratch to see how we've done it. So another one that's probably one of the biggest ones is nutrition. If you don't have nutrition right, it's a struggle. So we've, over the years, gotten better and better, and you can really see that. So working with someone that can get you on track for that stuff. Also, a good vet, obviously key too. And the vet's important, but I will say, if you get your nutrition where it needs to be, you will have less phone calls to that vet.
Yeah.
We learned that over the years. It's just, if that ewe is in good shape, body conditions where it needs to be, she can do her job and there will be less issues to deal with.
Yeah.
So we've heard it from lots of people, like, we'd rather do prevention than treatment. It's so much easier to go ahead of time than afterwards. So those, I guess, would be my tips or pointers or things that I've learned.
Yeah, that makes sense. So looking back over the years, what management changes have had the biggest impact on improving lamb survival in your flocks?
Probably, like, say, selecting ewes that can do that job that we need them to do. Don't let the ones slip through the cracks that can't. It will come back to haunt you. And that just makes more work for you, more cost for the farm. So things like that. And then just learning what to be looking for, be it at lambing time or at breeding time or those first few hours of life for that newborn lamb. Like, that all comes with time and experience, and you can tell someone what to look for, but you got to kind of see it and learn it yourself. Yeah, just anything that seems out of the normal, don't brush it off, because it probably is. Maybe you need a vet's help for it. Maybe you just need to adjust something yourself, but the little things are what add up.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. Just watch
Very
for the little
good.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Phil. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and give us your insights into your journey over the last few years of developing your flock.
Great.
Really
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of Flock Talk, please subscribe through your podcast app to receive alerts for future episodes. And please share our podcast with your friends.
For more Ontario Sheep Farmers content, follow us on social media at Ontario Sheep Farmers on Instagram and Facebook, and visit our website at ontariosheep.org.